Hi, I'm Norah O'Donnell, and this is Person to Person. Our guest today is Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson.
I, Ketanji Brown Jackson,
do solemnly swear.
do solemnly swear.
Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson is the first Black woman to sit on the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land. She aspired at a young age to become a judge, writing in her high school yearbook that she dreamt of a judicial appointment. Justice Jackson credits her parents, who grew up in the segregated South, for instilling a sense of perseverance that led to her historic appointment. She attended Harvard as an undergraduate and for law school.
And it was a wonderful experience for me.
We were surprised to learn the 53-year-old is the most prolific questioner on the court and among its most frequent writers of opinions. Her latest writing is a memoir titled Lovely One, which offers an intimate look at her life and the road she traveled to the Supreme Court.
This is the Jackson Family Bible.
In her first television interview since arriving on the court, we sat down with Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson for a wide-ranging and revealing person-to-person conversation. Justice Jackson, thank you so much for having us.
Well, thank you for being here.
What made you want to write this memoir?
I think it's gratitude. I started writing it about 2 years ago, right after the confirmation. I had gone through a pretty grueling process that some of you might have seen. And I just thought, what better way to mark the start of my time on the court than to have the chance to reflect on really what I thought were the forces and the people who were responsible for this accomplishment. At the beginning of the book, I say, no one reaches the highest of heights on their own, and I really feel that. And this was a chance to honor the people who made this happen.
Mm-hmm. The title.
Yes.
Lovely One.
Yes.
That's what your name means.
It is. So my aunt was in the Peace Corps in Africa when I was born, and my parents really wanted to honor our heritage and asked her to send them a list of African names, and they picked that one, Lovely One, Ketanji Onyeka, which is my given middle name.
I love the story that you told that when your first trip to Africa.
Yes, it was really memorable for me. So my husband's parents decided that they wanted to have a family trip to Africa, and we get to Kenya after a big overnight flight and go through customs, and the customs officer is in the booth. He takes Patrick's documents first, stamping, very serious. He takes my documents, and then he opens the passport and he sees my name. And he says, Ketanji Onyeka, when did you leave us? And I said, I'm American, and I explained that I'd never been to Africa, but my parents had given me an African name. And he said, well, welcome home, which was really kind of spine tingling for me.
Yeah.
A lot of meaning.
The book starts off talking about the balancing act of being a mother and a woman in the spotlight. How difficult has it been?
My parents had raised me to believe that I could do anything I wanted to do. That was really kind of their devotion for me when I was little. And that was my way of thinking about myself. And so it was sort of an identity crisis to some extent when I first became a mom, because I was working in a big law firm and I really couldn't do everything.
Tell us about your parents.
Oh my goodness, my parents were educators when I was born. They both were teachers in the public school system. They grew up in the South in a period of Jim Crow segregation. And what that meant for them is that when they were growing up, they were very limited in their life prospects. The law prevented Black people from taking part in public goods and services. They couldn't swim in public pools. They couldn't go to work, in certain places. They couldn't eat at certain restaurants. I was born within 5 years of the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, 5 years after. And all of a sudden, the world opened up to my parents. And I think that they really channeled all of their hopes and dreams and interests into me.
And since your parents were educators, of course, they had you reading at the age of 2 years old.
Two. My mother put cards up around, my room and around the house, and had me learning the words. And I was always very interested in pleasing my parents, and so that was her little project for me.
How old were you when you first thought about becoming a federal judge?
It's hard to say, but when I went through the confirmation process, people started looking through yearbooks and things, and they found that in my senior yearbook, I said I'd like to maybe have a career in law and someday get a judicial appointment. So at least by the time I was a senior in high school, I thought maybe being a judge was something that I would be interested in doing.
Most people have never heard of Constance Baker Motley, but she was an inspiration for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Constance Baker Motley was the first Black woman appointed to the federal bench. And before that, she was a civil rights litigator. She worked with Justice Marshall, Thurgood Marshall, before he became a justice, to really help bring about the fall of Jim Crow and all of the civil rights gains that happened in the 1960s. And it turns out that she and I share a birthday.
Yeah, you say you're birthday twins.
We're birthday twins. She was born 49 years to the day before I was. And she became a federal judge, but she never had the opportunity to be on the Supreme Court, even though she argued 11 cases before the Supreme Court and won 10 of them. So she was brilliant, but really an inspiration to little girls like me when I tried to think about what it was that I wanted to do with my life.
Do you think that was a moment for you where if you see it, you believe it?
I think so. I think that's sort of in the nature of human nature, that people who are able to look out and see other people doing things, children, start to get an idea of what is possible for them.
When we come back, we talk to Justice Jackson about her time on the court. As the first Black female on the Supreme Court, what kind of pressure does that come with?
I think that many people who are firsts feel a responsibility to do a good job. You're first for a reason. You're first because people like you have not had the chance to do the kinds of things that you're doing. And I think there's a fair amount of attention that comes with being the first. And when eyes are on you, you really do want to perform well. And so I have that sense, as many other firsts do, I think.
I want to ask you about in the University of North Carolina affirmative action case. Justice Thomas responded to your dissent by describing your views on race as follows. As she sees things, we are inexorably trapped in a fundamentally racist society, with the original sin of slavery and the historical subjugation of Black Americans still determining our lives today. What did you make of that?
Well, let me just say that the justices use our opinions as an opportunity to explain to the public our views. That's Justice Thomas's view of my position as expressed in my opinion. And I don't know if Justice Thomas really had anything to respond to with respect to the actual fact. And that's all that I was really focusing on.
But he wrote, she sees things, we are all inexorably trapped in a fundamentally racist society. Do you believe that?
No. No, and my opinion didn't say that.
Yeah.
My opinion said, look at where we've been and understand what affirmative action was designed to do. We still exist in a society in which the gaps that were initially created as a result of slavery, as a result of Jim Crow, exist. And that affirmative action, for example, was really a response.
Do you think that you and Justice Thomas fundamentally view race differently?
I haven't talked to him about this in particular. I can tell you what I feel and what I know, and that is that all of us are created equal, that we have in our society, the front of the Supreme Court says equal justice under law. And there was a time historically in which this country wasn't living into that principle, that promise. That's just a fact. I think it's important to remember those facts as we evaluate how much further we need to go, what progress we've made. I believe we can do it.
Let's talk about Trump versus United States, where the court rejected Donald Trump's broad claim of immunity, but said some actions closely related to his core duties as president are off limits. You dissented.
I did.
Why?
Because I wanted to explain the criminal justice system, but I thought that from my perspective as a former criminal defense lawyer and a trial judge who actually had a lot of criminal cases, I wanted to take a moment to explain how the criminal justice system works and how it has in it protections for criminal defendants and, in my view, really is set up to account for president versus ordinary person, and that the idea, the sort of founding principle of no one is above the law is really folded into the way the criminal justice system operates.
In your dissent, you wrote that the court declared for the first time in history that the most powerful official in the United States can, under circumstances yet to be fully determined, become a law unto himself. It sounds like a warning.
Well, I mean, that was my view of what the court determined.
You were concerned about broad immunity.
I was concerned about a system that appeared to provide immunity for one individual under one set of circumstances, when we have a criminal justice system that had ordinarily treated everyone the same.
Are you prepared that this election could end up before the Supreme Court?
As prepared as anyone can be. Let me ask you, are you prepared for all of the news cycles that you're getting as a result of this election?
No.
No, exactly. I mean, I think there are legal issues that arise out of the political process. And so the Supreme Court has to be prepared to respond if that should be necessary.
Since you joined the court 2 years ago, you immediately became the most prolific questioner among the justices. No one else is even close to you. Why do you laugh?
Because I was the most prolific questioner as a district court judge as well. Because I have a lot of questions and I want to know the answer, and I'm trying to do a good job. I think it's harder, obviously, when you're one of 9 than when you're all alone. And there's an adjustment period that I think had to happen from my perspective.
Mm-hmm. After this, we head to Harvard to sit down with Justice Jackson and her husband, Dr. Patrick Jackson. So this is the classroom where you met?
This is the classroom. It's very exciting to be here again.
And tell me about how you two sort of met.
She walked into class. It was first day of my junior year, her sophomore year.
Yeah.
And it was a core class, one of the sort of requirements for graduation that we both were just taking.
exactly. And I mean, you know, he was kind of cute. I walked in and I sat with my friends, and he was on the row behind me. And, you know, if there was a comment, he would lean over and say something. I think we may have introduced each other, but it was not quite love at first sight, because he was also a little bit of a joker. He would do things like hang his keys on my hoop earrings with the open back.
The
You
awkward
say
mating-
joking. That sounds like flirting to me.
Yeah, the awkward mating dance of the uncomfortable teenager. That is exactly right. That's exactly right.
And so, Dr. Jackson, did you specifically choose to sit right behind her?
Yes, I thought she was super cute when she walked in.
I mean, your love story is kind of like a Hollywood movie. You're friends, you know each other for a year. Both of you are interested but sort of uncertain about where the relationship could go. And then, Dr. Jackson, you put your arm around her.
So the last day of the academic year, I decided I'd take her down to a vacation house that we have on the Cape. And so the whole day, I was just showing her my background, who I was, and like things that are important to me.
And of course I was crushed, because I really liked him, and we were alone for the whole day and nothing happened. And I was like, okay, this is terrible. He clearly doesn't like me.
Yeah. So then I went to watch a movie and put my arm around her, and she stopped and turned on the light.
I did.
And said,
And I said, I just don't want to be hurt. Because by that time, having been together the whole day and he didn't try anything, I had convinced myself that I, you know, liked him, but he didn't like me, so I just wanted to go home. And he put his arm around me, and I said, I just don't want to be hurt. And he said,
I'll never hurt you. I love you.
that's what he said.
oh,
And it was very sweet.
oh.
It was very sweet.
Even now, it makes you emotional retelling
yeah.
that story.
Yeah.
Because why?
My admiration and love for Ketanji is palpable. Like, it's like it's uncontrollable. Like this is not a volunteer. I mean, I wish it wasn't, but I wish it was controllable, but it is not.
Yeah. Your admiration.
Oh yeah. Yeah, she's amazing. Like
Yeah.
As is he.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel very lucky to be in this relationship with someone who is so smart and wonderful and caring and, you know, everything I could have hoped for.
I wake up every morning saying, "Is it still true?" Yes, it's still true.
He is amazing too.
Yes.
But I think he just also has the gene.
Everyone's going to be
crying
like, I
gene.
need a Dr. Jackson in my life. Every woman is going to be like, I need a Dr. Jackson in my life.
They tell me that all the time, actually.
Do
They do.
You write that as a college student, you had a stubborn sense of my own value. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's a good question. I think the point that I'm trying to make in the book is that so much of success in life is believing that you can do it, believing that you have the capacity, the intelligence, the ability. And in my parents' experience, they had grown up at a time in which the larger society was not affirming of their capacity, their ability, along racial lines. I mean, this was the sort of story of segregation, the idea that there were people from certain racial groups that didn't deserve to be integrated fully into the society. And so when you come from one of those groups, you have to really focus on shoring yourself up in order to be successful.
How do you think it changes the views for girls and young women, you being on the court?
I mean, I would hope that it would give them additional affirmation, that it would show them that anything is possible. I've said that a couple times in speeches that I've written. If someone from my background and my circumstances can do this sort of thing, then I hope that they can aspire to do the same and feel
like if they work hard, that there's a possibility of getting there.
I mean, your story is one of hard work
Yes,
and progress
yes.
of an individual and as a nation. Polls have repeatedly shown that Americans are pessimistic about our nation's future. Do you have any worries about our nation for your children and other children's future?
Well, as a mom, I always worry about my children. That's, part of the job, I think. But, I think I'm optimistic about our country, because when you look at the long arc of history, we have made progress, and we will continue to do so. There will be times in which we go through periods of polarization and where it seems difficult, but if history is any guide, we push through it and we find new plateaus. So I think, as a general matter, I'm optimistic.
And in the long arc of history, it bends towards justice.
It does. It does.